The Brazilians wearing the black shorts are in Australia for a 5-game series against our best. Brazil, gold medalists at the Barcelona Olympics, are budding young players, some of them expected to appear in their national side in the 96 Games in Atlanta. Despite having won all 3 encounters against Australia, the visitors signalled no intentions of relaxing. Brazilian number 12 Gilberto was voted best spiker at last year's World Junior Championships. At times, the Australians matched their opponent's flair. Reflexes and agility are the name of the game, but jumping ability, as Australia's captain Gabriel Malhofer displayed, also comes in handy. Brazil's experience and tighter teamwork proved to be the decider. The visitors wrapped up the match in 3 sets. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Andrew Cranston started the ball rolling for the Hunter boys team, winning his first round of the match play 3-up with 2 holes to play. The power of Dungog's Ben Turner set up his win, his opponent conceding at the 17th hole. Matthew Clark's win had Hunter poised for a clean sweep, but state representative and number 1 ranked Hunter player Trent Berry faltered. Riverina's Adam Fraser won the round with the last putt of the morning. The Hunter girls team went one better, winning 4-0 against Metropolitan East. Michelle Nelson led the way, 7-up with 5 holes to play. Just as impressive was number 1 ranked Hunter girl Joanna Wally, who cruised to an easy win against Samantha Broadley. In the second round, the Hunter boys won 4-0 against Metropolitan North, but a disappointing result for the girls, losing 1-3 to the Northwest team. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Professor John Forbes says a conference of experts in Sydney found the incidence of breast cancer is rising. It's called for a national strategy on breast cancer to be introduced by the federal government.
It's called for a new approach, a national strategy and a national task force to develop and implement that strategy.
The conference defined the minimum requirements for treatment and research priorities.
We do have a blueprint to build on. There are over 40 distinct recommendations about treatment and research priorities in the document.
The findings and recommendations have been presented to Health Minister Carmen Lawrence. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Woolgoolga, in the blue and white, looked set to dominate from the outset, being far bigger and stronger than St Clair's. And on the day, it turned out to be the better side as well. The game was the Mid-North Coast area final of the Bill Turner competition, which incorporates 530 schools throughout Queensland, New South Wales, the ACT and Victoria. The score at half-time was 0-0. Although St Clair's found the net in the first half, the goal was disallowed, the referee calling on the advice of his linesman before ruling offside. The first of Woolgoolga's goals was scored by Christian Zelvis, who showed excellent ball control and then broke through a line of defenders. It wasn't long before the Northerners sealed Tari's fate when Luke McConnell left 3 opponents and the keeper standing to find the net. Woolgoolga's 2-0 win puts it in the final 16 of the competition and will next play the winner of the Far North Coast final.
The man arrived on a regular commuter flight from Brisbane just after 11:30 this morning. The 31-year-old was immediately handed over to Newcastle detectives at Williamtown Airport. He's been charged with 11 counts of sexual assault on his 2 stepchildren between 1986 and 1991. He's also been charged with failing to appear at Newcastle Court last December to face the same charges. He allegedly fled to Queensland. The man appeared briefly in Newcastle Court this afternoon. He didn't apply for bail and was remanded in custody. He'll face Maitland Court tomorrow to answer the 12 charges. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Surfest has in the past been travelling on rough seas, with a lack of sponsorship downgrading it from a major competition to just another event on the world circuit. But Newcastle's Lord Mayor says he wants council to underwrite it. That is, guarantee it will go ahead by putting out $150,000 if needed to keep it afloat.
We believe it's really worthwhile underwriting it to that extent.
The council's money will give other companies confidence to come forward knowing the event is secured. Surfest organiser Warren Smith says this means the competition would be upgraded to 4 stars, attracting all of the world's top professionals. Surfest is set down for late March, the 10th time it's been held. Council votes on the move on Tuesday night.
No. Were you out last night on that one?
Nah. Right. These,
The plumes of smoke could be seen from the centre of the city. The billowing grey clouds pouring out of the Broadmeadow High School's multi-purpose centre as students watch the shell burn.
We just saw smoke flying up. It was like a mushroom cloud, actually.
I just saw smoke and everything that's pouring out the top of the Binny shell.
The Newcastle, Hamilton and New Lambton brigades arrived to the scene within minutes. Breathing apparatus was called for as fire crews tried to douse the smoke-filled building.
Our worst trouble is to clear the smoke and the heat. It's still very, very hot up there.
At first, fire crews feared children could be trapped in the burning shell. Any children in the building?
That's what we don't know. We spoke to some teachers. It's normally their responsibility to have the children out. The first couple came to see us and said there's nobody in there.
The building, known as the Binny Shell, is home to the school's basketball court, stage and canteen. Nearly all the interior has been destroyed, distressing news for the school's shocked principal.
I'm completely and utterly surprised as to how it's come about.
It's not known how the fire started. Investigations will continue through the night. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The mayor of Alice Springs. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It was great to watch. I hope it was a great experience.
Up until today, CPR classes conducted by ambulance officers generally used just one mannequin at a time. To teach 50 people, it took around 3 hours. But now, thanks to the Greater Building Society and the New South Wales Ambulance Academy, the teaching of resuscitation has been made so much more efficient. The first 67 mannequins for the Hunter, costing around $10,000, were handed over today by Greater Managing Director John Arnold, and it's not the only area in northern New South Wales to benefit.
The Ambulance Academy in Sydney has managed to get a further 30, making a total of 50 in Grafton that will network between Grafton and Coffs Harbour, and we've been able to procure 60 for Lismore and Tweed Heads that will network between those two centres.
So far, 15,000 people have been taught CPR through Project Restart.
We were going from one tragedy to the next. Now we're seeing more people having their lives saved.
In 1988, Brudelin shot his former girlfriend, Tracy Gilbert, through the head while she was working at a hairdressing salon at Woodbury near Maitland. Brudelin then got into his car and turned the rifle on himself. Ms Gilbert later died in hospital and Brudelin recovered from his head injury but is now legally blind. A jury found Brudelin guilty of murder and he was sentenced to life in jail. However, that sentence was reduced to 18 years with a non-parole period of 8 years. That was before truth in sentencing laws were introduced. Earlier this week, only 6 years after the senseless killing, the Offenders Review Board agreed to allow Brudelin out of jail. This stirred a fresh outcry in the Newcastle community, with the dead woman's father telling NBN News that justice has not been done. Brudelin had been due for release next Monday, but he walked from the training centre of Sydney's Long Bay Jail today. The money is being spent on 17 new solar-powered lights, which will make navigating between Foster and the Keys, and particularly to Coomba Park on the western shore of the lake, much safer. There's a lot of boating on Wallace Lake, with commercial fishing and hirecraft, as well as the general commuting between the various centres and even the airstrip on Wallace Island.
We get quite a large number of boats on this lake, travelling to the prawning grounds and back, and to areas like Coomba Park. And with these lights, it'll be much safer for them.
The new beacons are larger and more numerous than the old lights and will be extra help in daytime. The Waterways Authority is also upgrading markings on oyster leases, with 2,000 new reflectors being fitted to posts. But that doesn't mean boat drivers can be any less attentive.
Even with the beacons there and the new lights and the reflectors, it's important that people still exercise great caution, because at night things look a lot different on the water, and I hate to think that they're going to get out there and go flat out and not watch where they're going.
The authority is hoping the new lights will reduce confusion for those not familiar with the complex waterway, adding to boating safety and pleasure all round.
The Government Pricing Tribunal approved cost cuts in the supply of electricity from Pacific Power to distributors such as Shortland Electricity. Around 22,000 of Shortland Electricity's commercial customers are in for windfall reductions.
Some of the mining companies could stand to gain about $100,000 per annum in their cost reductions, and the hospitality is in terms of $10,000 or could be greater, just depending on what the load is of the customer.
Hospitals, clubs and shopping centres are among the big winners, singled out for a break because their tariffs have been subsidising power supply costs in other areas.
The over-recovery of cost supply was brought about by the fact that they were cross-subsidising other customers within the tariff groups. Shortland is a commercial business now, and it is very mindful of the fact that it has to pay dividends to the government, and we're not reducing tariffs just for the sake of making the price cheaper. We're reducing them and still making a profit where we can.
The reductions are also a sweetener for customers to stick with the local supplier when a national electricity grid comes online next year. When that happens, businesses will have the choice of buying their power from competing distributors, some based in Victoria or Queensland.
Baby Jason Gunn was born at the John Hunter Hospital in June last year. 6 days later, he was dead. Dr. George Angus, who delivered the baby, told the coroner it had been a normal birth. As part of the hospital's early release program, the child went home when he was only 20 hours old. The following day, his mother, Julie Gunn, says her son appeared to have a fit. The court was told his eyes rolled back, he turned blue and was later hard to wake. Jason Gunn was readmitted to the John Hunter Hospital under the care of Dr. Andrew Gill. Tests showed no abnormalities, except the baby was jaundiced. Dr. Gill allowed Jason to go home, believing the episode was more likely to be a coughing fit than a seizure. He told the coroner, "I'm still not convinced that this was a seizure." Several days after he was discharged, his mother discovered Jason dead in his cot. The post-mortem found the most probable cause of death was a seizure disorder. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
An employee of the nearby Swansea RSL club saw smoke billowing from the Peel Street house just after 10:30 last night. A 42-year-old occupant was asleep in his bed at the time, unaware of the blaze. 2 fire units were called to the scene. Most of the blaze was contained to the lounge room, which was severely damaged. The remainder of the house suffered smoke damage. While the cause of the fire is still being investigated, the crime scene unit believes flying sparks from an open log fire may have been responsible. Meanwhile, police are looking for the driver and passenger of this Toyota Land Cruiser, left stranded in a metre of water in Cottage Creek early this morning. A Newcastle West End shop owner told police he heard an engine roaring underneath his premises and on further investigation saw 2 men alight from the vehicle. Police say they're unsure how the Land Cruiser with interstate number plates ended up in the drain. The vehicle has not been reported stolen.
It's a scene reminiscent of the American Civil War. Smoke, noise and marksmanship. The weapons used are replicas from that age, each competitor having to pack their round before firing a volley of shots, which makes it different from most shooting events.
It's the complicated procedures with loading a black powder and making sure that everything's tamped in properly, and you cannot use speed loaders or pre-prepared ammunition.
30 competitors from all over the state attended the Hunter Zone Black Powder Championships, from master to D-grade shooters, all attracted by the spirit of competition and the novelty of the event.
It's the smoke, the flame, the noise, and it's a competition where you've got only yourself to blame if you make a mistake.
It's the first competition staged by the New Tech Pistol Club at Torres since the range was burnt down 4 years ago. But the club hopes further extensions to the range and its ideal position will make it an important training ground for Olympians in the year 2000.
We have no restrictions on our shooting times. We can shoot 7 days a week. We have a varied range of matches that can be shot, and the location to the freeway and the electric trains to Sydney, where we've got them either side of us.
The championships will finish tomorrow.
Umpala on the money, paying $6.20 a win and $2.50 a place. Next, we went to race 7 at Randwick. $11, $7 and $3. The Quinella paid $19.80. The trifecta $237.20.
Hamilton in the blue and yellow led 3-0 early. The Wanderers team had its chance to level without success. The game developed into a kicking duel as both sides failed to dominate in attack. Wanderers kicker Peter Fallon had another go with his unorthodox kicking style with the same result. Solid defence continued to stamp out any enterprising attack, Hamilton clinging to its 3-0 lead at half-time. But the Wanderers showed its premiership leading form in the second half, outmuscling Hamilton 14 points to 9.
Competitors from around the country and overseas lined up for the 10th annual Australian Half Marathon, the 21-kilometre course plotted around picturesque Lake Macquarie. Within a few kilometres, the 400 runners had thinned out in order of ability, the leading pack pulling well away from the rest. Just short of the halfway mark, there was only 3 runners in a winning position. Ray Boyd in the red, Rod Higgins in blue and Paul Arthur in navy. Boyd dropped away shortly after, leaving Higgins and Arthur to fight it out. The women's title was more complicated, a bunch of runners still with a chance going into the home leg. Up front, Higgins and Arthurs went stride for stride, nothing between the two with 5 kilometres to go. Higgins gained the upper hand in the bout, establishing a winning lead to cross the line in 1 hour, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Gosford's Paul Arthur finished 20 seconds later, followed by Ray Boyd.
I hurt the last K. Hurt very much, yeah. Last 2 days I picked up a bit of a bug, but I don't think that would have made much difference. Rod just ran too well and he's a better runner on the day.
Bowrell's Heather Turland, the first woman home in a record 1 hour, 14 minutes and 56 seconds. There was little magic from southeast Melbourne early, with shots refusing to drop. But the Falcons' Terry Dozier was on target, his 15 points on the night taking him to 2,000 points in the NBL. A milestone also for Newcastle's Michael Johnson, who racked up his 7,000th point in the league. The Falcons look likely to bring up its 5th win on the trot after the first quarter, leading 29 points to 26. But the Magic started to pile on the points, going to a 12-point lead at half-time. Newcastle's point machine Derek Rucker wasn't in the groove, sinking only 2 from 8 at the 3-point line. The Magic ran away with the game in the last 2 quarters, winning 116 to 88. Central Charlestown in the blue hasn't won a game all season, and within 10 minutes of their clash against Souths, it was obvious the duck wasn't going to be broken. Souths crossed twice early before Mark Storkenbecker celebrated his 100th first grade game by setting up teammate Darren Mikowski. Central fullback Warren Briggs sacrificed his body to save what appeared to be a certain four-pointer. A forward pass robbed Souths of its next chance. But that man Stortenbecker was having the game of his life and he set up another one. Minutes later he grabbed 4 points for himself. Central never stopped trying, but as it's been all season, the opposition was too big and too good. Souths winning 74 points to 0. In other games, West outplayed North Nelson Bay, Toronto by just 2 against Curry, Lakes an easy winner against Cessnock, and on Friday night, Waratah was too good for Maitland. While many of the interstate under-16 sides are still on their way to Lake Macquarie for the national titles, the Northern New South Wales team has been getting acquainted with the fields where the championships will be staged. Coach Colleason has embarked on an intensive training program with the team, using some novel drills to ensure they can cover just about anything demanded of them. The Far North Coast, Christy Frogley, showing she's got the heading department under control. 160 girls from around Australia will compete in the championships, which are growing each year. Tournament organiser Pat Dybell says soccer's inclusion as an Olympic medal sport has helped foster interest and commitment among players.
They have something to strive for, not only a World Cup, but they also have that strive to play for Australia in our own Olympics.
But this coming week, players will be aiming to impress selectors who'll name a national talent squad to train at the Australian Institute of Sport in January. Among Northern New South Wales reps expected to attract the eye of selectors are Inverell's Kelly Digby in the Red Sox and Danielle Small from Lake Macquarie. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It's the second time in 3 months that the Newcastle Permanent Building Society has dropped its variable home loan rate at 8.25%. The PERM's rate is 0.5% lower than the current market rate. Today's fall of 0.25% means a saving of $33.70 a month on an average home loan of $100,000. It's good news for the Building Society's 16,000 home loan customers.
That means obviously a saving for us, and every little bit helps for struggling families, so that was great news.
The financial year, which ends tomorrow, has been a record period, while Managing Director Frank Wotherspoon says the institution wants to share its profits with its borrowers. He admits the reduction has been carefully timed to coincide with the rise in fixed rates by other institutions.
It is a genuine reduction. It has come about by the fact that we've had a good year and we're sharing that with our borrowers. But indeed, I would be naive if I didn't say that I thought it would also be good for business.
The Newcastle Permanent Building Society's new rate of 8.25% won't last for long. When the government increases official cash rates, which is tipped to occur soon, the Newcastle Permanent's variable rate will follow. However, according to Managing Director Frank Wotherspoon, there'll still be savings for customers.
At that time, our variable rate borrowers will still be 0.5% below the market.
The Greater Newcastle, the Hunter's other main lender, has indicated it will not be following the Newcastle Permanent's lead. Its variable rate will stay at 8.75% and will rise when and if official cash rates do. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Five months ago, Jane Taylor was on top of the world, making the third round at the Australian Open a career best. A month later, she injured her back.
Jane has a bulge in her disc, similar to this one, in the bottom disc on the left-hand side. If it was any worse, it would have completely ruptured and put pressure on the nerve, so she's very lucky.
Jane has been working with Brad Ross for the last 5 weeks to right the wrong, and she's more determined than ever to prove herself on the tennis scene.
I think life's full of different barriers, and if you pass them, you're a better person for it.
On Monday, the 21-year-old flies to America for a series of tournaments and training sessions, including 2 weeks at John Newcomb's ranch in Texas. Her form in these tournaments is vital to the Hunter Valley resident achieving her major goal, making the main draw at this year's US Open. Jane's time out of tennis due to injury has seen her ranking slip 40 places to 150 in the world. But being an outsider at the US Open doesn't faze her.
No, I don't mind at all being an outsider. It's good. There's no pressure on you at all.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.